Good morning and good evening to our viewers from around the world. My name is Alfred Ball and I represent Education USA and the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs at the U.S. Department of State in Washington, D.C. The goal of today's Facebook Live is to equip you with the knowledge and tools necessary to better navigate the U.S. college admissions process. We want international students like you to be able to study in the United States, and 550 Education USA advisors in 180 countries and territories around the world offer free advising services to help you. During the program, we will be answering questions from viewers. So if you have questions on navigating the U.S. admissions process, please post them at any time during this program in the comments section below. I am excited to introduce our speakers who collectively have a wealth of knowledge in the college admissions process. Joining us virtually is Chanel Goen, Associate Director of Admissions at the University of Georgia. Chanel manages the International Recruitment Plan for the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. Welcome, Chanel. In our studio, we are joined by Anna Wise, who is the Associate Director of International Recruitment at Towson University. Anna serves as the university's NAFSA Region 8 International Enrollment Management Liaison and the Study Maryland Recruitment Liaison. I'm also pleased to welcome Jocelyn Rocha Hidalgo, who is an international student from Bolivia. Jocelyn is currently pursuing her doctorate degree in psychology at Georgetown University. Ladies, thank you for joining us. Jocelyn, I wanted to start our discussion by getting your perspective as an international student. Can you share with us some of the common mistakes students make during the application process?
Yeah, of course. I think I'm going to start first with my background. I did my college degree at Berea College in the U.S. I'm originally from Bolivia, so I went there and do my bachelor's degree in Kentucky. And then now I'm doing my doctorate degree at Georgetown University in D.C. So I went through the application process as an undergrad and also as a graduate for a graduate school. And then I found myself doing these mistakes sometimes and found my peers doing these mistakes. I wanted to share this with you all. And I think the first one I want to share is choosing only famous schools to apply to. And it's such a common mistake when people start. I did this mistake and I wanted to go only to Ivy schools, the only famous schools I've seen in TV, Stanford, Harvard, but there's so many more. There's so many universities, colleges around the U.S. It's crazy that I only focus on 10, 15 that I've heard on TV. So I will definitely suggest people to just search for more. Spread out your research and look for that tiny corner in Kentucky, that tiny corner in Maine, that even states you haven't heard of. So
fantastic, that's great advice.
Yeah, that's really something to look at. Another thing I found is being afraid of asking questions. But please check the website before you do ask questions. There frequency asked questions, FAQs that you can look for in the website. Make sure to get informed. And if there's none on the website, don't be afraid to ask the people that are in charge. If it's their job to help you get into these universities too and guide you. So ask for help. Another thing, when you're writing your personal statement for any degree, please proofread it. Ask for help to proofread it. It's such a common mistake. I'm like, I'm perfect in English, I don't need help. We all need that extra. You're spending hours on this paper. Look for help to help you with those typos and just phrases that you think make sense in your mind, but you probably have been reading it for 2 hours or 20 hours, so it ends up making sense. So you need help, you need fresh eyes. Also, I know there are many Google websites that teach you the samples for the essays that you can write, but guess what? There are so many people looking at these papers too. You want to stand out, you want to be unique. So that's something that I would definitely recommend. And finally, another mistake that I did while I was going through this, I'm going to be, as an undergrad, I was going to be spending 4 years in this town, in this university. So don't ignore other aspects of school, such as location and weather, because you're going to be there for 4+ years. Might as well enjoy it. And then again, please reach out for help. That's a common mistake. Don't doubt it. Ask for anyone's help. Yes.
Jocelyn, thank you so much. I mean, you make very good points, especially the one saying that there are 4,700 accredited colleges and universities in the United States, a wide variety, and there's the right fit for everyone, for every student, right? And that's something that Education USA advisors, whose basic services around the world are for free, are focused on, is helping students find the right fit for them to succeed professionally, academically, and personally. So thank you for that message. I wanted to follow up. You mentioned that students often don't reach out for help when they should. And of course, we have Education USA, the Department of State's network of advising centers around the world. I think you engaged Education USA. Can you tell us a little bit about, would you give students advice about how to engage Education USA around the world?
Yeah, I was part of the Education USA in Santa Cruz, Bolivia. I reached out to them because I really had no idea what to do. I found I had things in the internet, but I really couldn't figure out what the right path was. And it took a little bit for me to feel strong and go ask for help. And they were so welcoming. Like you mentioned, they're there to guide us, and they just gave me all these wonderful resources, not only online, but also wonderful books that they have in their offices, and guide you step by step how the application process works, the exams that you have to take, where you can take them, every single part of it. They're there to help you through it. Also to read your papers. Those are the people that can proofread your essays. And I didn't have a computer at home. I'm coming from a low-income family. I was really grateful that this office had computers that I could use and internet that I could use because I didn't have access to those at home. So definitely, I will recommend going to any Education USA office. They're more than welcome to help you and guide you. And I know it's a little bit embarrassing to ask for questions, but shake it off, go for it. You can do it. Yeah, you just go and ask them. And even start with this: I'm embarrassed. I don't know what to do. Can you help me? And that's enough. That's enough. That's all you need to say. And they're there to help you. And I'm really grateful for all the people I met during that time. I also, through Education USA, I got the opportunity to get the Opportunity Funds, a scholarship. And I was able to apply to 4 universities in the U.S. with all the application fees paid. This scholarship was paying for all the expenses before before getting into a university. So I think that's really helpful coming from my background to get that kind of help. And it's not just to help you. Education USA is not just to help you to get to the U.S., but they also expose you to different scholarships and different ways that you can finance this possibility of studying in the U.S.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jocelyn. That was very valuable insight. I know our viewers might have some questions for you, so please hang tight. We will get back to you. Chanel, I think this is the perfect time to talk about admission timelines. What advice would you give students on the best approach for staying on track during the college application process?
Hi, Fred. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I would be happy to talk to you guys about the admissions timelines. So yeah, know the deadlines and the timelines of every university that you're thinking of applying to. I am originally from South Africa, so I know what it is to be an international student studying here in the US. But working in admissions itself, it's important to remember the US timelines. So we're going to start with the summer and fall priorities here. So in June and July, which is the US's summer, where in South Africa it's the winter, you want to visit the universities that you're interested in. Narrow your search down to about 5 or so schools that you're interested in, and if possible, schedule a campus visit at each of these universities during that summer break. I came over and actually did that over my winter break from South Africa. But so going into August of that year, you want to map out your final high school year. Get a calendar. Plan everything you have in that calendar itself. Everything from scheduling exams, taking the SAT, get a study schedule, and then include your application deadlines as well. In September, start looking at essays. Research the essay topics that each of the schools that you're interested in. Go look and see what essay topics they've had in the past. And then start gearing your essay writing toward those same topics. So for example, at the University of Georgia, we have an admissions blog, and you can find our essay topics and examples of great essays on that blog. Our essays is not very wordy, and we require for students to write a couple of essays between 200 and 300 words. So remember to look at each university that you're interested in and see how long these essays are supposed to be, and focus on substance and not necessarily word count. Start early when you write your essays, or once you have your essay topics in hand. Answer the question that's been asked. Don't recount. You want to reflect and tell a story about yourself within this essay, because this is really opportunity for you in this application process to share a bit about your personality and give the reader a glimpse of how authentic you really are. And have at least one other person read over that essay. Make sure you review that. So going into October, make sure you take your SAT or ACT exams. This is very important. Again, if you're looking at different types of universities, they might require a SAT, they might not. At the University of Georgia, we require an SAT or ACT for our first year applicants. Make sure you send your final scores to each and every of those schools that you're looking to apply to. In November, ask and gather for your recommendations or your recommendation letters. So get all of your letters together and get them ready to be submitted. In December, you submit and send your applications in. I usually tell most of the students who apply to the University of Georgia to get these applications in well prior to the assigned deadline. Don't miss these application deadlines. In February, some of the students will find that they would have to do interviews. Some universities require interviews within the application process. For example, at the University of Georgia, we do not require that. So we will not be doing interviews with that application process. In March, you pick your university. I also recommend for students to look at a backup university. So have a plan B and narrow down the universities that you've researched so far. In April, you can review your financial aid or scholarships. This is, at some schools, you will have to indicate that you're accepting the scholarship. So it's important to understand which schools and what requirements they have within this process. In May, you will have to submit your commitment deposit. So the May 1st is the commitment deposit deadline. It's a national deadline. So this is where you show the university your commitment by paying your commitment deposit to secure your spot at your chosen university. Also research which schools are binding and non-binding when it comes to picking your final school. So for example, University of Georgia, we're non-binding when you're paying or making that commitment deposit. Over the summer, students attend orientation. With my university, students are required to attend orientation. Make sure you allot a good amount of time to be able to attend the specific assigned orientation dates that you have available. And then after that, you will start your selected university in August or in the fall.
Chanel, thank you very much. That is very valuable advice, which we appreciate. Anna, we just learned about including about timelines for taking admission tests. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about which tests are necessary for international students and how they go about that process.
Absolutely. Thank you, Fred. So the first thing that I always like to make sure that international students understand is that universities usually require two different types of tests. So the first one would be a test of academics. So for instance, the SAT or the ACT test For undergraduate and for graduate, you might have a GRE or a GMAT test. And these are kind of testing some of the subjects that you may have studied previously. But then there's also tests of English proficiency. So these might be a TOEFL test, a IELTS test, or a PTE test. Now usually for these types of tests, universities will say specifically, we don't really care which one you want to take, right? So if you want to take an IELTS, you want to take a TOEFL, people say, which is better? It's really about what your preference is. Universities, when they say it's the same for us, it really is the same for us. We're not going to prioritize one over the other. But the other important thing to realize is oftentimes students will think, okay, I haven't taken an SAT or an ACT test, so I can't apply to university in the US, right? We hear this quite frequently. So as Chanel was saying, some universities do require the SAT and the ACT test. So it's a very good idea for anyone applying to US university to try and take that test if they have the opportunity. But if for whatever reason your test is not as high as you hoped, or whatever the situation is, it's important to realize that some universities don't actually require these SAT or ACT tests. Now, the reason for that is education systems are often very specific per country. The example I like to say is if I studied and took a Gaokao test, I'm not going to do nearly as well as almost any student in China, particularly since I don't speak Mandarin. But if I took a Gaokao test, I'm not going to do very well. So it's not necessarily fair, is what some institutions believe, for international students and for US students to have the same level expectations for tests like the SAT and the ACT, which are based on US education system. So it's always important, which goes back to what Jocelyn was saying, is you need to check the website because the universities will say very clearly what is required and what is not required. So it is not a valid excuse for you to say, oh, I didn't know you need that test because it's going to be published. But do realize that some universities don't require the subject test. Now, all universities will require some type of proof of English proficiency. And the reason for that is English proficiency says nothing about how intelligent you are or how likely you are to be successful in university. It's simply a skill that you need to be successful in university. The same way I would never do well on the Gaokao in China, right? Because I don't speak Mandarin. Doesn't mean I'm not intelligent. It means I'm not going to do well there. So the English test simply tests how prepared you are with that skill. So realize if somebody tells you this is our requirement, they're saying this is the required English level we think is going to allow you to be successful.
Thank you very much. That's very good advice, Anna. One of the questions we often get from international students is about how they can finance their education. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. The first thing to realize is, again, check the websites. We keep saying this consistently. But universities will usually post opportunities they have for scholarships. Now, there are some private scholarships that are available through companies, through EducationUSA has some that they offer. You can research those externally. But a lot of universities will also offer scholarships based on academic merit, which means how well you did in school, sometimes based on test scores, sometimes not based on test scores. And when you hear a scholarship for academic merit, that means really the university is rewarding you for hard work you've done. And that's, you can almost say free money, right? So that's money you want to always say yes and accept. The same way Chanel said, sometimes you need to say, yes, I'm accepting your scholarship.
Right.
Now, the term financial aid can be a little confusing because oftentimes that refers to financial aid by the US government. Not always, but sometimes. So in that case, international students are unfortunately not able to qualify. So you must be clear on the difference between financial aid and scholarships. Scholarships being usually either academic or athletic based. Now, something else you can research is some of these universities will have special scholarships for honors college. So if you want to participate in an honors college program, you can oftentimes get an even higher scholarship. I know at our university, Towson University, we have athletic scholarships, we have academic merit scholarships, and those can be combined with honor scholarships on top of it for international students.
Thank you very much. That's fantastic perspective. Do you want to talk about loans? Is
Sure.
that?
Loans are another option that's becoming increasingly popular. So these would be student loans. Now, oftentimes the most important thing to realize is understanding what are the criteria. So what are you signing up for? So there are a lot of very strong financing loan options available, but you need to make sure you understand what all the terms are. Now, I know this is something Education USA can help with. So if you have heard about a student loan and you want to learn more about it and say, hey, what precisely does this mean? What am I signing up for? When do I have to pay it back? And how much do I pay it back? Is this safe? You can bring it to an Education USA advisor and they can help you review and look at some of your options. But that can be a very strong option for students because, of course, a US education is an investment in your future. So if you receive that US degree, that can hopefully help you pay that loan back.
Anna, thank you very much. Jocelyn, can I turn to you for your perspective on this? Can you tell us a little bit about your situation, the difficulties you faced, and what your options were that you had to, could consider in terms of financing?
Yeah, I could not have afford paying a whole education in the U.S. coming from the background I come. So I had to choose, like I mentioned, the Opportunity Funds Scholarship allowed me to pay for all the expenses before that. That's translations of papers that can become really pricey. Things to English, TOEFL, SATs. So that scholarship allowed me to do that, but I could limit it to only 4 universities or colleges. So I had to choose really wisely and which those 4 will be. And so I had to choose which ones will offer more scholarships to international students, or which ones are more likely to offer scholarships to their students in general, which ones are more likely to just offer you grants. And you can find those things in their websites. So I was creating big data sheets how to get informed on those information and understand the terms. What's a loan? What's a scholarship? A merit scholarship? I didn't understand those specific terms, so I would really recommend getting informed on those. And yeah, I was really lucky to get at Berea College, and you don't pay tuitions in the college, which is really unique. So you get accepted, and you have a full scholarship for your tuition already when you get accepted. But I also got some merit scholarships throughout the years that will allow me to pay for my expenses as a student, lodging and food related stuff.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that advice and that perspective. It really does sound like, financing, like any other aspect of the application process, involves really doing your research. So 4,700 accredited colleges and universities, many that are not the famous names, but that have excellent resources, professors teaching, students will have a great experience, and so it's about doing the research to find the right fit for you, both in terms of the school as well as the financing. Thank you very much. Chanel, can I turn to you? Once students have gathered the right documents and put together an application package, can you share with us some things that they should keep in mind before submitting their final application?
Yes, Fred, I would love to share some of the notes I have here. This is one of my favorite parts throughout the application process here at the University of Georgia, is really reading the applications and getting an idea of the type of student that is applying to the University of Georgia. So how are you evaluated? You want to pick colleges that reflect who you are and what you want from life. Review the college websites. You have to talk to the school counselors and consult, of course, with your family. Spend quality time thinking about what you want your college experience to be, and make a list of these things and keep them in mind while crafting the list of these prospective schools that you're looking at. And what are colleges really looking for? Ultimately, different schools are looking for different characteristics, yet many have overarching qualities, and that's sought by all. But regardless of the school, the main characteristics an admissions panel is looking for is, number one, an impressive academic career. Show us that you do well in school because you're coming here for school again. Demonstration of extracurricular activities and leadership interests. We value that. Quality of your written work. Make sure, again, you revise those essays that you've submitted to these universities. And the last thing is getting some solid recommenders or letters of recommendation. Then we're going to look at your academic progress and trends. So your academic performance throughout high school. For us, there's not necessarily a minimum grade point average or a class rank that's required, but know that you're up against some of the best and brightest in the world that's applying to these US universities. The more rigorous course selection you have, and the better your grades are, and the higher your class rank, the more competitive your application is going to be. We also look at intellectual challenges. We look at what academic challenges the student had available and what the student took, as well as what the student didn't take. So we wanted to see if the student did challenge themselves within that academic environment or if they chose to take an easy route. We also look beyond the transcripts at intellectual opportunities chosen both inside and outside of the classroom. And then we also look at work ethic, integrity, and maturity. We look at all your writings, your transcripts, the application items, your recs, the recommendations for evidence of exceptional or poor maturity. We look at your work ethic, not just the jobs or employment that you've had in the past, but the effort of work that goes toward your goals and the exceptional or poor conduct records that might come along with that. But it's important for you to show us that you're a hard worker in all the areas, not just academically. And then finally, we look at your professional discretion, or the university then takes a final look at the student as a whole and the factors that the student has presented. And ultimately, we look at the challenges that the student might have overcome, whether it's significant personal or academic growth. But ultimately, we're looking for a student that has the potential to have a positive impact.
Chanel, thank you very much. That's excellent advice. Anna, to wrap up our conversation, can you share with us how decisions are communicated to students?
Yes, so this is always the very exciting part. Some universities will actually make phone calls or WhatsApp calls, Skype calls, and tell you, congratulations, you're admitted. I always love making those phone calls. Other universities will give you decisions through emails. Sometimes they'll send you physical mail with a letter, usually a big envelope that says you've been accepted. And actually, a lot of universities nowadays have student web portals that you can check and sometimes upload documents and find out where am I in the review process. So oftentimes for those universities that do have web portals where they have given you access, you can see your admissions letter there first before any place else. So if your university is using a web portal, and again, they will tell you that they're doing that, make sure that you check that portal because that will be the first place for it to be posted.
Thank you so much, Anna. That's also a very valuable perspective, and it's important for students to know where they stand.
Yes.
And I'm sure universities are very conscious of the fact that students are waiting, and that a lot depends on the decision that's being made. Okay, so this was a very insightful conversation. Let's now take some Facebook questions from our viewers. So we have a question from Rawad. Is there an age limit for college or university applications? Excellent questions. Chanel, can I turn to you for that?
Yeah, so the University of Georgia, we don't necessarily have an age limit. However, we do require that these students have finished high school. Obviously, once they get to campus, some students are dual enrolled, so we do have younger students on campus as well. But to give you a specific number, we usually don't see any students younger than the age of 16. Usually it's from 17 onward is the age group we see on campus.
And what about an upper age limit? Is there, if I'm in my 50s, which I am, can I apply to college?
That's a great question. We actually have a program for 62 and plus or over that can study here at the university as well. So it's open-ended. You can study for as long as you want and be a lifelong learner.
That's fantastic. I mean, which again is part of the ethos of American higher education across the board, is that it is open to everybody, right? We're trying to welcome as many students as possible from around the world, and as many diverse students as possible in everything that means. Going to our next question, several viewers have mentioned difficulty in financing their education. They're asking more about scholarships specifically, about how you go about looking for scholarships. Anna, can I turn to you for that?
Sure. So as mentioned, there are a lot of scholarships that are specific to specific universities. There are also ones that are done through private companies or organizations. So if you work with Education USA, you work with NAFSA, you can find a list of some of those external organizations that offer scholarship opportunities. Otherwise, the best advice to get a scholarship is really to focus on your strong application, because universities do have scholarship funding available, but that funding usually goes to students with very strong academics, very strong motivation, very strong ethics, all of those areas that Chanel was talking about. So yes, scholarships are possible. You need to do research and you need to work hard to earn them.
Can I ask a follow-up? So for many American students applying to college, also scholarships are always an issue, and financing is an issue for everybody. Many American students get sort of partial scholarships depending on need. Is that something that is the same for international students, that they might be offered a partial scholarship or partial funding and then be asked to self-fund a portion?
So usually that would be the case. So usually students would receive a scholarship that would not cover the full cost of tuition and housing. So then oftentimes students will be funded by a combination of family members. It is not a good idea to say, okay, I know I'm coming to the US and I am going to work to be able to support the rest of my education, because one of the very important things to understand is if you come to the US for a student visa, you are there to study, you're not there to work. So that means that there is a limit on the type of work students can do. Students on F1 student visa can work for up to 20 hours per week on campus only. And that should not be considered the primary source of your financing for your university. That's very important. So yes, there are scholarships. Oftentimes there will be a difference that still needs to be paid. So usually you want to make sure that if your goal is to study in the US, you've been identifying external sources, whether it's a company, organization, a government, an uncle. Oftentimes it's an uncle. So yes, that's important to realize.
Thank you very much. So we have a question from Dania, who asks, what are the main criteria for acceptance into U.S. universities? And so, Chanel, can I turn to you?
Yeah. So when it comes to the admissions process and the things that we look at, that's the biggest admissions items that we consider. It comes down to your merit scores. So your high school GPA, your grade point average coming in. We're going to look at your SAT and ACT scores, because if students have a trend of doing well in high school, we want them to come and continue that trend here on our campus. So your grade point average in your high school transcripts and the courses that you took in high school and the rigor of the courses is going to be a very good indicator of how successful you're going to be on our campus. So that's going to be the main thing we look at. So again, GPA, SAT or ACT scores, and then we're going to look at the rest of your applications, which includes the essay and everything else we discussed a little earlier. But do well in high school. Have a good GPA coming out of high school. That's going to be the biggest thing we're looking at.
Thank you, Chanel. So a question from Nathaniel on Facebook, who asks, how important are recommendation letters to U.S. institutions? Anna, let me begin with you.
So this will also depend oftentimes on institutions. Most universities do require recommendation letters, but not all. Recommendation letters are an excellent opportunity to show some of your leadership skills, some of your ethical skills, and some things that we can't necessarily see just from your grades. So the important thing I always advise students is recommendation letters are important. So you want to make sure the teacher or principal or whoever is writing your letter for you knows you and can say nice things. I always joke, don't have the person who doesn't like you write your letter. But they know you, they know how you work, and they can say honest, truthful, good things about yourself. The other thing about recommendation letters is if a school tells you they require 2 recommendation letters, don't think it is helpful to send 48, because some students will do that, and 48 letters is too many. They will not read all 48. If they ask you for 2, 2 is what you send.
Send 2. Got it. So follow instructions.
Follow instructions.
Got it.
So.
Jocelyn, can I ask you, I mean, how did you approach recommendation letters when you were going to college? Was it easy to get? Did you have to explain what these were? I assume this is not something, well, we know this isn't something that is common around the world.
Yeah, I had an issue with parents will think, or I don't know how to explain this, but I personally thought it was just a simple 2 lines, 3 lines of a recommendation letter. That's not what it was. I got informed. I asked more questions to my EducationUSA advisor. I was also limited to only people who knew English. And there were so many other people that could speak Spanish. And they have no English background, that I could ask for a recommendation letter and then get translations for those. So definitely I will follow Anna's recommendation to ask to someone who actually knows you. I can talk about you and your skills and all those things. As we mentioned earlier, sometimes you won't get the opportunity to interview. All these papers are going to be the only things that these people are going to see from you. This is your way to present yourself and how good of a candidate you are for the university you're applying to. So I will, again, find people who knows you, people who know you, and will write things that reflect who you are in these papers.
That's very good advice. Anna, can I follow up? I mean, if a letter comes in a foreign language, of course it depends on the university, but will many universities welcome that with a translation into English?
With a translation into English, absolutely. I would not advise sending just a letter without the translation,
right.
But as long as you include a translation into English, absolutely.
So the main piece of advice that I'm hearing from the 3 of you is find someone who knows you well and who can really testify to your qualities and write in detail about why he or she is recommending you. Okay, thank you very much. Very good advice. So our next question says, almost all universities in the United States look at extracurricular activities that you have done, so activities outside of school. I'm an international student, and in my country, there are few options to do extracurricular activities or classes or activities. Will that hurt my application? Chanel, what would you say?
That's an excellent question, Fred. And I can honestly say, coming from South Africa myself, we didn't have a lot of extracurricular activities available at my school, because my school was focused on students going to school and doing well at school. If you don't have a lot of extracurricular activities available, that is okay. However, do show us that you are filling your time, the free time that you have, with positive or impactful things, whether that's a job or volunteering at a local orphanage. The other thing that I do advise students to do as well is don't just submit an application and say, oh, I volunteered at the following places. Tell us how long you volunteered there for. Tell us how many hours a week do you spend there? How many hours a week do you work? And what type of an impact did this volunteer or work opportunity have on your life? And you can share some of these things in your essays as well. And share with us that maybe your institution or your high school does not have a lot of these extracurricular activities available, but show us that the ones that you have plugged into, that you were involved, and not only that, you aspire to become a leader within that area.
So it's not just about doing something extracurricular that's organized, but about who you are as a person and whether or not you're involved in your community, in the wider world. That's fantastic advice. Thank you very much. We now have a question that is coming from a viewing group at the U.S. Embassy in Havana, Cuba. For English language testing, can students apply only using IELTS or TOEFL results, or are other exams accepted? Very good question. Anna.
So again, the question is going to be, make sure you check the university website, because the university will usually release a list that says, these are different ways that you can meet the English proficiency requirement. For instance, for Towson University, we accept the Pearson test of English as well. We also will accept the Duolingo English test, which we are excited about for undergraduate studies. This is a test that you can take on your own. It's a self-proctored test you can take on a computer. So you don't have to travel, and it's a little bit less expensive. This is a new test that some universities are accepting and some are not. Now, other universities will also waive English proficiency results if you have, for instance, taken a Cambridge curriculum course or an IB course. These are international types of high schools. If you've taken a course in one of those types of education systems, oftentimes universities will also waive TOEFL IELTS. But the best advice is go to the university website where they'll have a listing that says, this is what we accept. And if you think that you might have an extenuating circumstance, you can always reach out and say, hey, I've taken this thing, I've done this thing, I studied here. Would I be able to qualify for a waiver? And the worst that will happen is they will say no.
Got it. So do your homework.
Do your homework.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great advice. Jocelyn, just out of curiosity, which test did you take?
I took the SAT and the TOEFL.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
And then for graduate school, the GRE.
The GRE for grad school.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, do you have any recommendations for student athletes looking for undergraduate studies and scholarships, as well as short-term programs that allow athletes to practice their sport and also study? We know that that's one of the great assets of American higher education, is that you can both study and really be an athlete and do both well. Chanel, can I turn to you for that question?
Yeah, that's another great question, and it kind of hits home with my background. I came to the US on a sports scholarship, so I was a tennis player. To answer the question about how do you get these sports scholarships, it depends on the type of sport. It depends on if the university has that sport available. And the other thing that I highly recommend for students to look at who are interested in sports scholarships is to look at the several divisions that's within the NCAA body. So for example, if you're looking at a large Division I school, you're going to get some high quality sport there. So for example, at the University of Georgia, we had John Isner that played here, and he played in Wimbledon this year. The other options that student athletes should look at is looking at Division II schools. Division II schools also offer athletic scholarships. And the third option is to look at Division III schools. Now, do remember, Division III schools do not offer athletic scholarships. However, you can be on a sports team and they can give you an academic scholarship. So again, go do your research, connect with the coaches at the schools that you're interested in playing in. And if you have a sport that has an immediate result, so for example, tennis, if you have a ranking, email the coaches your ranking and tell them that you've looked at the school's roster and that you think your ranking is higher than some of the folks that they might have on the roster. And then you can start that communication with the coaches, because it also depends on what the coach's budget looks like and how many scholarships they have available for the following year. But yeah, do that outreach kind of early on.
Chanel, thank you very much, and especially for sharing your personal story. That's fantastic. I want to point out that we did an Education USA Interactive webinar exactly fully on sports scholarships a little while ago, and that is available on YouTube and via the Education USA website to anyone who wants to see the full interactive. We have a question from Fitsum. Fitsum already has a Bachelor of Science degree from his country and would like to know if it's possible to do a second undergraduate degree in the United States. It's a great question. Anna.
Absolutely. Fitsum, you can do a second undergraduate degree in the United States. So usually universities will have a system for you to transfer some of your academic work that you've done in your home country to our institutions, to allow you to maybe take a little bit less than a full 4-year academic load in order to earn your second bachelor's degree. But absolutely, you can get your second bachelor's degree. Oftentimes students will do that because they want to get more intensive understanding of the subject matter, or possibly they studied commerce or business and now they want to move over and study psychology, get a second type of subject area. absolutely, we would welcome you to apply for a second bachelor's degree in the U.S.
That's great information, and also the fact that credits can be counted. So if you have a degree, at least some part of that is going to be counted, most likely toward a degree in the United States.
Right. The one thing I would say is if you do have a bachelor's degree, every university in the U.S. that offers a bachelor's degree has a minimum amount of time you must be studying at that university. So do not think that, oh, I already have a bachelor's degree, so I'll go for one semester and get my second degree from Towson University or University of Georgia. University of Georgia and Towson, every university in the U.S. will have a limit that says you must do, usually it's about 1.5 years or 2 years worth of studies in order for us to give you a new degree that says Towson University, Georgetown University on it.
Got it. Thank you very much. Very valuable advice. So our next question is, do recommendation letters and references need to be from a student's field of study, or could these be from people from other fields, completely unrelated? And again, very happy to see that this is a question from our viewing group in Havana, Cuba. Anna, can I ask you about that?
Sure. The most important thing about finding recommenders is that they have worked with you in either an academic, a professional, or a work capacity. So it does not need to be in the same subject area. If you want to come study history, it does not need to be your history teacher who writes it for you. But it does need to be someone who can say, how are you when it comes to completing assignments? Do you meet your deadlines? Are you a hard worker? So usually it needs to be someone who has seen you in an academic or in a professional. So some universities will say, yes, if you had an employer, your employer can write you a recommendation letter.
Chanel, anything that you would like to add to that?
Yeah, I concur with Anna. It is important for us to see in the letters of recommendation that there is some substance written about the student or the applicant. So for example, if I read a letter of recommendation that is only one paragraph, that's a little concerning because it shows me that this person who wrote the letter doesn't really know the applicant as well. Usually when we see letters of recommendation, they will go from 1 to 2 pages long, where this person will explain how the student handled a scenario or a challenging academic task and how successful the student was after that. And also out of the letters of recommendation, we will find other information topics that will help shape our understanding of the applicant. So a student might not share that they have had, let's say, a tragic event that happened in their family or in the past. And sometimes the counselor or the school principal will share that story or that background with us in that letter of recommendation. And that'll give us a good overview of how mature the student is and how they've handled the challenges that's come upon their life.
Thank you, Chanel. Very good advice. Jocelyn, we have some questions for you. Quite a few students online are asking if you could repeat the names of the scholarships you received at Berea and Georgetown.
Okay, so the one in Berea College, the full tuition, it's part of the then it's a norm in Berea College. Every student who gets admitted to Berea College in Kentucky, they get already a full scholarship, full tuition automatically as part of it. It goes through the application process. When you're admitted, you already come with your full tuition scholarship. It is a competitive school to get into, but once you get into it, you don't have to pay for tuition. It's also work study, so we are required, every student is required to work for the university. We do get paid some for it, but it also goes towards the education expenses. And that's how I got. Right now I'm doing my PhD programs. PhD programs are a little bit different. Some schools are gonna give you also the full tuition as part of the program. And Georgetown University also it's paying, the psychology department is paying for the full scholarship. I'm working again for the university as a teaching assistant and doing other research with them, with the department, to pay for those tuition and expenses. but they're giving me a stipend as part of the program. This doesn't happen everywhere. It's not with all graduate programs, especially masters. Those are a little bit harder to get full tuition paid. Mostly you have to pay at least half of it. But PhD programs, some of them are going to be more lenient, and you get full funding and also a stipend as part of the program.
That's fantastic. So again, it sounds like do your research,
Yes.
look at all the schools, and look at the many options out there. 4,700 accredited universities. You know, Education USA, we want to represent all of these schools, and we are always at pains to tell students, look, do your research and find the right fit. There are so many excellent places to get an education. So we have a question from Monisha, who is asking if we could speak a little bit about the admission process for transfer students, which is very interesting. Chanel, can I start with you?
Yeah, the transfer application process also varies among the schools here in the US. But so I'm going to use the University of Georgia as an example here. It is actually very easy to apply to the University of Georgia as a transfer applicant. You have to meet our minimum transfer requirements, which is 30 transferable hours, so 30 hours or more, and you have to have a 3.2 GPA or higher with that to be considered for admission. So in other words, you don't need a SAT or ACT score when you're applying as a transfer student. The one note that I would throw out there with this is if you're applying from an international university, so a university outside of the United States, we do require that students have to submit a TOEFL or an IELTS score to show us that English proficiency. So our minimum TOEFL score is 80 or above. So again, 30 transferable hours, a 3.2 GPA, and an 80 on the TOEFL, and you will be strongly considered for admission.
That's fantastic. Thank you. The very interesting perspective. Our next question is whether or not colleges and universities will accept credits from international schools, and I take that to mean both universities, which we've talked about, but as well as secondary schools. Anna, you mentioned that. Do you maybe want to talk a little bit more?
Sure. So a lot of U.S. universities will actually recognize major international curriculums. For instance, if you have attended a Cambridge school, IGCSE school, IB school, a lot of those universities realize that you're doing very high-level academic work, and based on your examination results that you use to graduate, you can receive transfer credits. So for instance, Towson University, and again, it's all going to be posted on the university website, but Towson University does offer credits for students taking AS levels or A levels in a Cambridge curriculum. We also offer credits for students with an IB diploma. So if students graduate with a full IB diploma, we feel that is equivalent to your first full year of academic studies at Towson University. So while a traditional program is 4 years, if you come in with an IB diploma, you may graduate in 3 years. So each university will have a different system, but a lot of universities, particularly those that have strong international populations, realize the value of the subjects that you're studying and will transfer those secondary school examination results in.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Very good information. So unfortunately, we are almost out of time. I would like to thank each of you, and first of all, ask you to share a final thought for our viewers. Jocelyn, can I turn to you?
Yes. Final thoughts. I have so many thoughts to share with you all. I will recommend ask for help. Don't doubt there are many people happy to help you and willing to help you. So reach out to them, and also do your work. Look around the websites, do research. There are so many places that you can apply to, and some of them are going to be a better suit for you than others. And that's what you should do before you apply. Find the right place for you, and one place that makes you happy academically and also personally.
Thank you so much. That's great advice. Chanel, can I turn to you in Georgia?
Yeah, I usually tell most applicants that they're about to embark on the most epic journey of their life. And I think it's important for you as an international student to understand the value in finding the right fit You're going to be at a place for 4 years, as Anna indicated, or longer. And yeah, it's important to realize that this is a fun part of your life. Make sure the institution that you're choosing can help shape you and help you reach your dreams and aspirations and help find your passions.
Thank you so much. That is fantastic advice and a great spirit for students to come with in approaching their undergraduate studies, their studies generally. Anna, can I ask you final thoughts for us?
I would agree very much with Jocelyn and Chanel's recommendations. The other thing I would say is it's very easy to be overwhelmed by this process and to say, this is very complicated, this is very scary, and this is not possible for me. The important thing to realize is there are currently over 1 million international students studying in the US from hundreds of countries. Those students all started just like you. You already have access to Education USA, which is a top-tier program that will help you for free. You have access. Make sure you take advantage of what they can help you with. Make sure you ask questions and realize US education is not some impossible thing that no one can ever achieve. It's possible. There are students who started just like you, who are sitting in seats similar to Jocelyn here. So make sure that you stay encouraged, you ask questions, work with Education USA, and really think about your process step by step, one piece after the other. Because if you think about it as, I have to do all of these things, you may feel overwhelmed. So just think piece by piece, step by step, it's possible.
That's fantastic, fantastic vision, advice, and perspective. It's all possible. There are 1 million students currently that have done it, and you have Education USA to help you along the way. Thank you so much. I really want to thank you for joining us today, and of course a special thank you to our guests, Chanel, Anna, and Jocelyn. A very special thanks to our viewing groups joining us from around the world, and especially those at Education USA in Nicaragua, Education USA Medellin, at the U.S. Embassy in Havana, Cuba, the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, Ukraine, the U.S. Embassy in Guatemala, and many other groups around the world. You can find more information about studying in the United States by visiting the Education USA website at www.educationusa.state.gov. There you can find information on the 5 steps to U.S. study, locate an Education USA center in your country, one of 426 around the world, connect with us via social media, learn about both in-person and virtual upcoming events, research financial aid opportunities, and much more. Thank you, and please join us for future Education USA Interactive web chats. And on a final note, I would just like to share this quote by Deputy Secretary of Education Mitchell Mick Zais, and goodbye from Washington.